And the time frame on this is looking to be probably about midsummer. I can say that somewhat confidently after talking to these guys, because if you guys ever want to walk over to ERC 516 and check out our lab, you'll see it's completely under renovation. They've ripped up all the carpet, they've put new carpet down, they've redone a lot of that room. So that room's already undergoing renovations, which is awesome, because it's like, it's the first time I've seen UC move on this in a freaking eternity. So this is going to have a lot of cleaning to do, but how cool is this? By next fall, we should have our own place to go and study and do research and all that jazz. So that'll be really, really awesome, really fun. Bam. All right, nothing new on the public affairs, and we
actually, Hayden has the first slide today.
Go for it, Hayden.
Oh, hey. Sorry, I was fixing, I forgot to make sure the stream had audio, which it didn't for the first 5 minutes, but that's fixed, and now I can talk about CyberArk. So this is, Corey found this story, and then I sort of stole it from him, because it's a web story, and I'm a big, web is really my thing. So the story is that there's this program called CyberArk Password Vault. It's an enterprise password management system. It's for managing sharing passwords among people at a company, sharing access to things, stuff like that. And they found a pretty bad vulnerability in it. It's a remote code execution, which is sort of like that's sort of like, it's like sort of game over. It's the attacker can access the system, and they don't get root privileges, but they get the same privileges that CyberArk is running with, which is it has access to all the like sensitive data, like I don't know, the passwords it stores, which is sort of it. And so the big thing that CyberArk did wrong here is that they used deserialization on untrusted data. When you log in this app, it would your client, your web browser would send a serialized .NET object, because they use .NET, and the server would unserialize it without even questioning it, and that's what went wrong. So you might not know what serialization is, and so it's basically a way to take, object-oriented programming languages. You have an object that has methods and it has variables and stuff. If you want to take that object and put it in a format where you can send it over the wire, save it as a file, do whatever, not just have it live in your computer's RAM, then you can serialize it. And people use serialization because it doesn't require them to write much code. It's just the language has serialization built in, and it takes one line, and then you have something you can send over a wire. But the problem is that you can serialize, in most languages that support it, you can serialize anything. So you could serialize a simple object that just contains a user and password and nothing else in it. Or you can serialize an object that contains a bunch of functions and code, and that's exactly what the attackers did. They made it so that instead of serializing an object that just all it did was return some information about the client, like their username, password, session ID, or whatever, they made it so that when it tried to look up the username or password or something, it would instead run a bunch of code, whatever code the attacker wants. And so the lesson learned here is serialization should not be used for untrusted data. You can't trust the user to provide you with just an arbitrary object unless you're very, very careful. There are some ways you can make serialization safe, and it sort of varies on a language-by-language basis. That cheat sheet link up there, it lists some of the ways you can do it. In general, I'd say you're better off not using serialization at all if you have to use untrusted data. Use a data interchange format which is made for this, such as JSON or XML, YAML. And it'll require you to write 4 lines of code instead of 1, but it's worth the security benefits. So that link up there, the OWASP links, are both really good and have a bunch of information about this class of vulnerability. And so CyberArk has now been patched, and you can read about it on the Hacker News. So yeah, that's what I got. I'll hand it over to Corey.
The next vulnerability I'm going to talk about is called SireJack. I believe that was actually supposed to say SireJack. My bad. What it was is there was a vulnerability that allowed false alarms to be set off within the emergency alert system. You know, there's a tornado and you hear those sirens start going, that's the emergency alert system. This company out of Boston, ATI Systems, they found out that these guys were using unencrypted radio transmissions in order to control these sirens. So anyone could just listen in to those transmissions, figure out the protocol ATI Systems was using, and then just go ahead and create their own signal and just send that out to whatever sirens happen to be within range of their radio transmission. Which, to be honest, that's actually a little bit scary to me that we rely on this emergency alert system with radio signals, because someone could go through if they want to mess with some people, just put some radio blockers on there or something, block out any incoming transmissions, especially if you know the frequency is going to come in on, then suddenly no siren goes off next time a tornado's coming in. You could get a lot of people hurt that way. But
wait until we hack the weather.
Yeah,
I think this is a much bigger trend. There's a lot of these old systems that have been around since like the 60s and 70s, and back then they served a purpose. But now in this modern era, you have to consider security, and they just haven't. They won't want to take it away from the radio, because what happens if systems start going down and That's the reason that they can rely on that system.
Yeah, and it's not just it's just the really old alarm or the old alert systems. It's like they're still making these new sirens that still have these vulnerabilities. They're still being used with these unencrypted radio transmissions. And so he actually, if you follow the link here, he's got 2 videos. One where he really goes in depth on how this radio system works and how it is that they're exploiting it. And another one is where he demonstrates it, and he actually gets to make it play his own personal message, which they're a penetration testing team that they were hired to do this. So they're not doing anything funny. It's just SireJack penetration test demonstration 1. And then he just kind of repeats that for a little while. So a patch is currently undergoing testing, but the patch is not currently released. And even then, they're still going to have to put it on to all those sirens that are out there. So beware if you start hearing your siren say any funny messages. Take that with a grain of salt, maybe. Okay, Spring Development Framework. There were 3 vulnerabilities that were put out for this. I'm going to go from the least severe of the 3 to what was deemed to be the most severe. This first one is privilege escalation. So the server would receive input from a remote client, and it would then compose this multi-part message. Sorry, for anyone who doesn't know, Spring Development Framework is used for creating Java applications. Where was I? All right. So one server receives information from a client, and it needs to send that data to another Spring development server, and so it composes this multi-part message. But then in transit, the message would have a little bit more data added into it, and it would kind of shift the data around a little bit, and it would leave the message vulnerable to things like privilege escalation, because if the part that the value was read incorrectly of this multi-part message was, say, a user group or a username, then you can, if instead of saying user Jonathan, it says it's now user admin. Well, you're in a little bit of trouble now because this client's being given admin privileges now. The second vulnerability was directory traversal. This was limited to Windows systems only. But through their web model view controller, you could just put in a directory, and you were able to traverse to directories that were restricted, and as a normal user, they weren't supposed to be able to access, and they were able to kind of get into those. And the third one, I'm not an expert on WebSockets or Stomp, so I know very little about how Stomp works, but basically they were exposing Stomp clients over WebSockets and using an in-memory Stomp broker that they could get access to through the Spring messaging module. So I guess it was meant to just communicate information between users, I believe there wasn't a lot of information on how this Spring messaging module worked, but they were able to get access to this Stomp broker, and they were able to send in these malicious messages that allowed for remote code execution. Someone who knows a little bit more about Stomp might be able to give you a better idea.
Does anyone here know more about Stomp or Spring Framework? I worked a little bit with the Spring Framework.
I know Spring Framework is pretty popular. Like your favorite Fortune 500 company probably runs on Java and Spring. So.
Yep. At Siemens when I was doing web dev.
Yeah, there is a patch, but basically the only solution to prevent any of these was only just a patch. There weren't any other mitigations. I did include, you can't really see them right now, but I did include the links
just Google
to
the CVE number.
Yeah, if you just Google their CVE numbers, that's what those links are. But again, I've basically included all of the information that's in those CVEs. They were very, very thin. And this last one is Auth0. For anyone who doesn't know what Auth0 is, it's authentication as a service. So like if a developer says, well, I could, implement a username and password system, but then I have to worry about storing all those passwords, and I have to encrypt them or salt and hash them, or whatever it is you choose to do with it. Or maybe I want these users to be able to just log in with their Facebook or their Twitter or whatever. That's kind of what Auth0 is for. And they are used by over 2,000 companies, and they handle 42 million logins a day, over 1 billion logins a month. So they get a lot of traffic. So any vulnerabilities through them can be pretty bad. This vulnerability specifically, it's in their legacy lock API. I didn't get a chance to look into where that's used or how popular it was. But it sounds like basically anything these guys use is probably going to be pretty popular just from their sheer amount of traffic. And they were not properly validating their JSON web tokens, and it allowed some sort of malicious actor to bypass the login authentication system because of a cross-site request forgery attack. AJ might, or Hayden might be able to give you a little bit more information on how those typically work. But basically, they were able to take this valid, what are they called? JSON web token from some other user's login on their own page. They were able to take that valid use token and use it for themselves, and they were able to just get in.
So don't quote me on this, but this sounds like the basis of a replay attack.
Yeah,
where
it's
you record credentials sent in a packet and replay it off to a server to be let in. I think that's
it sounded really similar to that. I've actually they've got a demonstration video of it that I want to play in just a second. But so Auth0, when they found out about this, because it was found by a penetration testing firm that they had hired, and the fix. They actually wrote a fix in less than 4 hours, which is great, but because, unfortunately, all of their libraries and their SDK are installed on client side, and all these developers who are using it, they had to go out and individually contact each of them and get it patched on their systems, and that's actually taken 6 months for them to do it, but it's done. Apparently, everyone who uses Auth0 is currently patched right now, so it's great. Want to take a second.
Stats for nerds.
Stats for nerds? You want stats for nerds?
I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if I can just paste this over here.
This is a funky music. Oh, shoot.
So I'm just going to...
Famicom looks oddly familiar, doesn't it?
Can everyone at least kind of see what's going on here?
Oh. Look at it.
So right now he's entering an email for it's just a generic victim email.
Is it the same as no? It's not.
So it is currently not yet authorized. This email that he put in is not authorized yet. So he's running an intercept right now.
Intercepting the packet.
And he's intercepting this packet from this, I assume it's an authorized user.
Burp Suite's a man in the middle.
We just have this music running for the rest of the meeting.
Yeah.
This is chill as heck.
I just hope that people watching the stream get to hear this too.
I'm literally just now asking them. I didn't test.
If not, they're missing out.
So he's intercepting the packet set of a login.
Yeah, from I think it's an authorized user. Someone that's actually able to get in through Auth0. He's intercepting their packet transmission.
Yeah.
He's taking out this JSON web token, and he's going to use that as his own JSON web token, I guess.
So this is the new email he made.
Yeah.
I just got confirmation they can't hear it.
Okay, that's good. And then he's intercepted his packet as he's sending it out.
Oh, so there he went and pasted the
web token.
Actual token that's
so he
perseveres.
And then he lets it go out, and he's in, I guess. Yeah, and that's how you broke Auth0 until a few days ago.
I think we should start doing some more stuff with Burp Suite. Today we're doing SSL strip, very basic man-in-the-middle stuff. But Burp Suite stuff like that is what we'll be getting in.
I was really hoping that they would list the song.
That's really cool though. That's really cool. That's a great example of a freaking.
There's got to be a present in here somewhere.
The full screen on the right there. There you go.
I think that's the last one. Yeah.
Cool. All right, so I made the slides this week on this guy, and I'm not clever enough for a joke like Chris. So, Systems Hacking Lab. Today we're going to be starting up on this man-in-the-middle stuff. So there's just a couple things that I'd like to cover before we get into this. What is systems hacking, kind of the mythology behind it. You cannot crack a system, you cannot break into a system easily, at least, in just a single pass. It requires a very slow, methodical approach. You need to make sure that you are covering all your traces, you know exactly what you need to be targeting and looking at. You cannot just go willy-nilly when you're starting to penetrate and hack systems. So just a short list of things that you might be interested in as an ethical hacker when you're going for a system is, capturing password hashes, cracking the passwords, gaining escalated privileges from those passwords, maybe executing some malware or your payload, hiding the files that you're dropping, covering all of your tracks of you hiding those files, concealing all of the evidence that you were there at all, and then pushing into a more involved attack, which could be maybe solidifying a foothold on their server for extracting information in the future. So it's a slow and steady pace. You can't rush it. So what we're going to be talking about today in the first step of exploitation is going to be passive online attacks. What we saw in that video was kind of a passive online attack, but he already had access to the Auth0 thing, so somewhat of a passive online attack. And forms of passive online attacks are like packet sniffing, and we've gone over this in CyberArk before. Just some tools, Wireshark, TCP dump. You can capture the packets as they flow across the network, as you saw in that video he was doing with Burp Suite. This is something interesting that I don't know if a lot of people know about. There are specific protocols that store their passwords or transmit their passwords in plain text. And these are vulnerable protocols. Telnet, FTP, SMTP, SNMP, version 1, RLogin. Those are just a few to name off the top. There's more than those, but this is a good way to start. Maybe a fun project we could do sometime is to set up an FTP server, log into our FTP server while we're intercepting our own traffic and see what our own credentials are. That's something we can do in the future. So if you don't have a vulnerable protocol that's sending unencrypted data, and you get like HTTPS or something, you can see the encrypted data, but you just can't read it. I'm sure we all understand that. So, you might be able to grab password hashes from a packet, but you're going to have to do some cracking before you're ever going to be able to read them. Today we're going to be covering the man in the middle, so I'm only going into it a little bit here. So this is also, you're really looking for vulnerable protocols, and in that last content video that you played, that was a great example of a vulnerable protocol logging in with Auth0. I don't necessarily know what their specific protocol is, but they have a vulnerable network login method. So there's a couple of different tools that we can use. Beef, Browser Exploitation Framework, Burp Suite, which was shown in the video, SSL Strip, and MITM Proxy. Today we're only going to be covering SSL Strip. There's other versions of SSL Strip that have come out since the one that we're going to be using that support decryption, or I shouldn't say decryption, that support avoiding HSTS, which Hayden will talk about here in a little bit. But that basically, HSTS has made SSL Strip almost a moot tool in today's world.
Or websites that are on top of things, which many are not.
Well, I mean, a lot are, but many are not. Yeah, most websites you're going to use are going to be HSTS, most likely. I know Chegg isn't though. Chegg does not have HSTS.
Someone's going to steal your textbook.
Yep, and then replay attack. So after packets have been captured and analyzed, packets can be placed back on the network. Literally saw a video example of that in that last content demonstration. Him capturing the packet of an authenticated user, copying the token over to your unauthenticated packet, boom, sending that off, you're authenticated. So capture credentials and send the packets to a target to gain access. So these are just the 3 basic passive online attacks. So going a little bit deeper into man in the middle, it is 2 parties communicating with each other. You have your user and your web application. Typically, you talk straight to the web application. But in the man in the middle attack, you have somebody, some evil person here with glasses on, watching all your stuff, stealing all your passwords and all your data. Man in the middle attacks are tricky to carry out. They're not the easiest thing to do. Typically, you'd want to be on the local area network if you're going to be performing them at all. And a lot of times, it's depending on how the network is set up at the place that you're wanting to perform this kind of attack, depends on just a multitude of things that you're going to have to alter. We could get more into depth in this, but today we're going to dip our toes into the SSL Strip. But it can also result in invalidated traffic because it might look like it's originating from a different IP if you're not ARP spoofing correctly, a whole slew of things. So go ahead and let's get out our Kali boxes / Kali Docker images / Debian distros, Ubuntu distros, and
Sorry we forgot the slide of the guy with 3D glasses.
yeah, I forgot the slide of the guy. Sorry, Chris. Sorry. But let's get this up. This is not going to be a very hard one. These should mostly already be installed if you have Kali. Netstat should already be installed, period. So what we're going to be doing here is basically telling our box to forward incoming packets that were not addressed to it using this following command here. forwarding stuff in. Do any of us want to follow along here? Yeah. So this is the first thing we have to do. So we're forwarding packets to our machine.
Do you know what exactly putting one space in that file is?
The space is a typo. You just need to set it to a 1 from a 0.
Okay.
Allowing this IP forwarding to take place. So once you have that, we're going to go ahead and learn our network gateway. There's a multitude of ways of doing this, but netstash-in-r will list out your network gateway very clearly at top, and I'll get on my laptop here and show this in a second. And then we need to start ARP spoofing to tell your host, because we're only going to be man-in-the-middling ourselves today, that we are also the gateway. So you have to use your interface, which is up. For most of us, it'll be WLAN 0 and the gateway IP that you get from netstat right here. This probably is not going to work on UC's network, but this is something that you can play around with on your own home local network. Let me see here. Switch this over. And laptop, HDMI, right?
Yep. And did you switch the OBS scene?
Laptop. Transition.
Oh, right. It looks like the capture card is frozen, so let me restart it.
Yeah.
It does that.
Is that your buddy who did the logo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He forgot some stuff in the room. He's gonna go through it before it's stolen.
That's cool. That's cool. So we're waiting on our
There we
capture
go.
card here.
Yep. Now it's good.
Now is this going to project here?
Yep. Yeah, you can edit.
Changing up our streaming today. Okay, cool. Let's get this set up here. Cannot see anything here. Okay, so first things first is we had to do the echo first command here. Go ahead and hit enter and set that up. I probably should close out this ARP spoof here and this SSL strip here. Okay, so we went ahead and forwarded. Now let's see what my gateway IP is. It's kind of smushed, but you can see that the gateway IP here is 10.52.240.1. So we can take note of that. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and open up a new tab, and I'm going to do ARP spoof. And for this one, you can specify a target IP. So if you were like at your house and you wanted to be man-in-the-middling intercepting another computer on your own local area network, you can say, oh, this is my local area network IP. For a lot of you, it might be like 192.168.1.1, and then like another computer in your house that you can kind of test this out on. So this is the IP of my Mac, which I was trying to do. But for the case of this, we are just going to focus on ourselves and not try to intercept anybody else. It doesn't work too well on UC's network. I don't know why. So here we go. We are now ARP spoofing. We are now saying that we are the gateway.
If you're on Wi-Fi, it's because they isolate Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi.
They do. Yeah. So because of network isolation, we cannot actually man the middle each other, which is a good thing, because that means they're on their ball. Yeah, Chris?
It uses routers.
I'm sorry?
They route a wireless network if they use that.
Yeah, we can do that. I guess I want to connect to. I mean, we won't be able to have internet or demonstrate HSTS, but
The interface on it has a login. Just like that.
okay, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and do that then.
Or we could just
If I if I could see my own freaking Wi-Fi.
This is why I like to use the stream computer.
Yeah. What's your? Is this it right here?
GLAR.
Who's fruit salad?
That's definitely not a Wi-Fi pineapple.
Password.
Good life. All lowercase.
Maybe we can get something here.
Might have to do that.
Sorry for the wait. All right, we're connected. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop ARP spoofing this. Cleaning up and re-upping targets. Cool. Let's go ahead and let's do our netstat -nr again, see what we have. So we're on a different router now. So it's 192.168.8.1. If anybody else in here wants to also connect to the access point and tell me their IP, I could try to man the middle U.
What's it called?
It's called like GLARnet.
What's the password?
Good life, all lowercase. And then we'll have one of the victims try to connect to the portal and enter credentials, and it should intercept them. So while you're going ahead and doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get my ARP spoof up again. So for this, my gateway is 192.168.8.1, and I need to do the -T over here because I'm specifying a target. Is anyone else connected and wants to give me their IP?
.8.142.
Well, I want to do Nate. What's your IP? Dot what? That's your gateway. What type ifconfig or IP -space A. And let's see here.
Yeah, 168.8.208.
.208?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to start ARP spoofing here. Okay, so now your laptop thinks that I'm the gateway, or it should, because I'm spamming it over this network saying that I'm the gateway now. So this is kind of how the man in the middle is working. His laptop goes to my computer, which is the gateway, to the actual gateway. So go ahead and go over here. So this next command line is kind of long. What we're doing here, and if anybody else wants to follow along and also try to intercept one of their buddies if they're on this network, we are setting up our IP tables to direct the traffic that we're getting on port 80 over TCP to port 8080. And what I'm doing this for is because when I fire up SSL strip, the man in the middle, I'm telling it to listen on port 8080. So I'm going to go ahead and start feeding it information to comb through. This is what this guy does. Go ahead and do that. Cool. And then I can do SSL strip. What this is going to do is it's going to write the goodies that it finds to goodies.txt and listen over port 8080. So let's go ahead and fire this up, and I hope this works. I hope this works on this network. Alrighty, do you want to go ahead and, Nate, go to the login page and see what's up. Here's my goodies.txt. It writes just into the home directory. If you're wondering where that file gets dropped, it's just the home directory.
Is it your current directory or home directory?
Home. Home.
Anything in there yet?
Huh?
Is there anything in there yet?
There shouldn't be anything in there right now. Let's see. It's cat goodies. Nothing. Have you tried logging in? Does that site, is that site HTTPS? No. Interesting. This is a tough one to pull off. See, man-in-the-middle attacks are finicky, and you got to play around with some stuff here. So hopefully we can get something out of this. If not, you guys will feel free to try to intercept each other. What I might do is stop ARP spoofing him. It's cleaning it up. I'll just ARP spoof myself. And I'll try logging into the gateway. Zoom in here some. Come on, come on. Control Shift plus. Control plus. What's the IP?
192.168.8.1.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. Gateway. Alright, so let me just see if I can enter any password here. Okay, so it's not writing anything into there, but we all get the idea. This is kind of the very basic way to do interception.
Hey, you said you need an HTTP site?
HTTPS that doesn't use HSTS. So a lot of sites use HSTS. So I think the one thing that we should focus on above all here is mitigation of this and how this has been widely mitigated already on the internet today. I wish we could have got this running, but I've been busy with exams and everything. I didn't have a whole lot of time to foolproof test to make sure this will work all right. So probably next week or as we go into the summer semester, I'll focus on a more robust man-in-the-middle framework like MITM. I posted that link in Slack or Burp Suite because SSL strip is already outdated. But this was the exact way that the Certified Ethical Hacker book had the exercise all laid out. So let's go ahead and switch back over to...
You don't need to hit that button, you just have to...
Just do this.
Yeah.
PC.
That's only if you're changing.
Project.
Don't worry about it.
And then we're going to go to desktop and transition.
So it's on the right.
Cool. All right. So you can't do man-in-the-middle SSL interception, SSL stripping on a lot of common websites today because they use what is called HTTP, strict transport security. And Hayden is going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what this is and why it's done.
Yeah, so basically the issue is that HTTP allows being unsecure at all, and more we're trying to move the entire web away from that. And one of the ways we're doing that is servers can now, I don't know how familiar you guys are with HTTP, but whenever you load a web page, it sends you the body of like the page, but before that there's a couple headers. And so now servers have the option to specify this header that you can see right here. I'll give myself a little pointer. Strict transport security, which is a way of saying from now on, or at least for what is this, 31 million seconds, which is 365 days. Do not remember me and remember that you cannot connect to me via insecurely. Only refuse to connect to me except over HTTPS. This means that if SSL strip is telling the client, no, just go back down to insecure HTTP, your browser is I know I'm not allowed to do that. And so your browser will refuse to connect. And So yeah, so sites that are on top of security will be including this header and saying something like a year or 6 months or multiple years, and it has other options. Like this includes subdomains. This means if google.com sent it to you, it would also apply to like images.google.com, like drive.google. It would apply to all the subdomains. And so the one catch with this is that if your computer has never visited a site, then your computer won't already remember. Like your computer won't have a record saved saying always connect to Google via HTTPS. And so if you're visiting a site for the first time ever, then and someone man-in-the-middles you at that point, then your computer won't have seen that header, and the attacker will remove that header when they man-in-the-middle you, so it won't work. So the way that browsers have dealt with this is there is now a list called the HSTS preload list. And here I'm going to open this link. And so we can see if I type in, I'm guessing, I didn't actually test this demo. Oh no, wow, Google doesn't have HSTS.
Chromium was on there, didn't it?
Huh?
Chromium?
Try Chegg.com.
Huh?
Chegg.com's no bad.
Chegg doesn't even have a valid certificate chain. Okay, here, what's the site that I know will be on there?
USbank.com.
Yeah, Facebook is preloaded. So, and this is, so the preloading is, there's basically a giant list of, if you run a website and you want to say, my site is going to be secure till the end of time, which is a big commitment to make because it means that you got to be on top of it. But if you were in a position to make that commitment, then you can get your website put on the list. And this list is actually, oh boy, let's see what's going to happen. Let's say this alone. This list of websites that promise to be secure forever is shipped with your browser. So your browser includes this in the code. So as long as your browser wasn't attacked, which is, you don't install a browser every day, so it's a lot harder to attack it, then you can trust this. And so you can see if I scroll down a little bit, this is just a huge list of random websites that have committed to being on here. And so you can, if you run a website, there's a whole process described here that you can submit it. But you have to be very, very careful and confident that you're always going to have HTTPS, because getting on the list is easy, getting off the list is hard. So yeah, so that's how we've been mitigating man-in-the-middle attacks. So it's yeah.
What about HSTS being used as a super cookie to track users?
Huh?
Have you heard about that?
No.
Basically, I visit a website like, say, Facebook. Well, Facebook loves to collect data on their users, and they want to know where I've been. So they put in all these other domains inside this HSTS file.
Oh, huh, I haven't heard of that.
And then you go back on the internet and then you come back to Facebook again, let's say 3 days later. And then they look at those domains that they included, and they see if you're now linked to an
that's interesting.
HTTPS, and if so, they know that you've been visiting them.
I'm sure they'll come up with some sort of mitigation with that in due time.
Safari's mitigation was allow users to turn off HSTS.
Did they really?
It's not by default, but it is something that a user can do.
That is the opposite of making the browser more secure.
Just turn it off.
Yeah. No, do not turn off HSTS. It's very good.
There are ways of trying to dance around HSTS, and I think that's definitely something for another meeting.
Yeah.
Revisiting man-in-the-middle.
There's an infinite well of stuff you can learn with web stuff. Yeah, that's all I got. I don't know if AJ has anything else, but.
Well, I don't have a whole lot else other than a little bit of stuff to say. So, yeah. Chris is going to show us a little bit about OpenWRT, right?
Yes. So I brought the routers with me today. I brought two of them actually. These are AR150 routers.
Do you need this?
I do not need this because I set up wireless on this.
Did you test that it actually worked on this?
Test with this. It'll probably work. I haven't tested anything this week. So basically, a router is just a bunch of software. So these are actually open source Linux boxes that just run router software. Can I close this?
Yeah, you can open new tabs.
They're like $20. You can buy them online.
Yeah, they're
Pretty
real
cheap.
cheap. How do I connect to wireless here? There's no thing.
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to connect to the wireless that I plugged in.
Yeah, you don't have access to any.
Oh wait, no, it's on this side.
I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't let
I
you.
do have it. Connect. Alright. Do not be discovered.
Wow, I can't believe it lets you connect to Wi-Fi. I couldn't change the resolution on that screen without getting a sysadmin in here.
Was it 8.1?
Yep.
So, if you've never signed into a router before, they do have their own little websites that run on top of them that you can control everything about what's going on. What was the password that I just said? That's probably it.
Yeah, it's taking.
I was just checking. Connecting to that network did not kill the live stream. I was worried for a second.
They're in parallel, so it should be good.
Yeah, I was just making sure that Windows didn't do something stupid.
So this is OpenWRT. This is a little fancy interface on top of it. I think if we go to advanced, it'll be the real thing. Yeah. Same password. So you can install software on this just like a normal Linux box, although not every software. It obviously has to be built for the architecture that's running on this. Am I in the camera path at all? But what's interesting about that is you can actually put SSL strip on the router itself. So you don't even have to go through the difficulty of doing ARP poisoning or any kind of that. You can just say, I am the router, and anyone's traffic is automatically going to go through you. So you can sit in the coffee shop, take down their Wi-Fi, and say, I'm a coffee shop public, or even if they don't have a public one. And this is, again, very low cost. This is like a $20 router. So
Just name your network like ATT Wi-Fi.
yeah, just
Anyone will connect to you.
Starbucks free.
Google free, yeah. Google Starbucks free or whatever.
There's a couple that every phone will have connected to statistically at least once. That's like your coffee shop stuff.
This is why it's a good idea to go on your device, go into the list of saved networks,
It's only a couple megabytes.
clear out any that you don't connect to every day.
Yeah.
Like, do that like regularly. Or like every time you connect to public Wi-Fi and you're like, I'm never coming back to this place.
So this is
Go remove
everything
it.
that's already installed on here. This is just your plain router stuff. DNS mask is a little DNS server. Other stuff like that. Lots of IP stuff. I don't think I have internet on this one, so I can't see what I could put on it. But SSL strip, aircrack is on there, so you can actually attack other Wi-Fi networks using your router. Speaking of which, we'll transition to the other router I brought in.
Is anybody familiar with DNS mask? That could be something we could cover sometime too. DNS mask is really great if you ever want to, say, blacklist a bunch of domains. Say you want to block ads or ad servers at the router level, so you don't need ad block, but everything gets blocked. DNS mask can do that.
So has anyone ever heard of a Wi-Fi pineapple? So you can actually install the software that runs on Wi-Fi pineapple on this little cheap router and not pay for a Wi-Fi pineapple. Although I haven't quite gotten it functioning all the way yet. Never. Stop asking that. So you can easily weaponize a router that you bought off of Amazon. Yeah. This one's not going to work. I know that for a fact. But if you don't know what a Wi-Fi pineapple is, it's basically a tool for doing wireless penetration testing, so all kinds of Wi-Fi good stuff. I haven't really played around with it much. So yeah, this is just showing that not everything is software, or at least it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. The Wi-Fi pineapple is basically an attack platform in a router. You can set up rogue access points, track everybody who's been connecting, grab their credentials, the whole shebang.
Kick them off their Wi-Fi network.
You can do de-authentication attacks on the Wi-Fi pineapple too, and it's really good at that.
I have all of Hack5's products. I should bring those in sometime. We should do like a Hack5 show-off meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm down. I got a Hack 5 pineapple.
Yeah. The Wi-Fi pineapple is made by a company called Hack5, which makes a lot of really interesting toys.
You can't look it up on UC's network. It's blocked.
That's how fun it is.
It's HAK5. There's no C in Hack because they're cool.
Use a VPN.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like there was even this one where it's like something to prevent hacks.
Yeah, they've got USB rubber ducky is another thing they have, which is for testing USB exploits. It's if you've ever heard don't plug in a USB drive that you don't trust.
That is why.
It's because it might be a USB rubber ducky, which will pretend to be a mouse and keyboard. And very quickly type and click things to run some code on your computer the instant you run it. Plug it in.
1,000 words a second.
Huh?
1,000 words a second. Something like that.
Sorry?
It's like 1,000 words a second.
Yeah, it can type crazy. And it has to be
1,000
careful because they don't know what, like if you're doing the classic attack of drop the flash drive in the parking lot and hope someone who works there picks it up and takes it in, then you got to be careful because you don't know if their computer will be able to handle 1,000 keystrokes per second. But
Well, not just that, but sometimes there's it may be a legitimate USB, like mostly, but then it's got like.
did you
if they
disconnect from
install
the
a
actual
keylogger on
Wi-Fi?
your computer or whatever.
Did I?
I think you
believe
might have
last
because my
semester I
stream just
shared
went down.
An article about there was a
Just
security
disconnecting that.
conference in Taiwan that was actually giving out USBs,
I've been connected to
and most of those USBs were legitimate. But
No,
again,
maybe it might have just been my
took it
computer
off
then.
From this cybersecurity conference, turns out that there was malware on a couple that got put on at the manufacturer level.
Every year that happens. Every year at Black Hat people drop flash drives, guaranteed.
Well, no, like the convention itself was giving out USB drives, but the manufacturer that they had bought the USB drives from had been compromised in some way, and someone had uploaded malware into a small selection of the USB drives.
I'm currently watching me saying that I
Alright.
put the stream's down, so the stream was definitively not down.
So stream's not down. This is good. So I guess I want to wrap up this meeting with something that's very important to myself. So this organization is kind of all of our baby, and we are getting to a point where we really need to start thinking about elections and getting fresh leadership into the committees here at CyberArk to elongate our lifespan, because a lot of us aren't going to be around forever, and it would be really sad to see an organization like this with so much momentum with our labs and stuff dwindle down. So I know next week I think we're going to be asking any of you if you're interested in taking up a leadership position in any one of the committee heads, in my position or the VP, to think from this week to next week, because next week we'll probably have some small kind of election thing where we can all talk and figure out where we want to move going forward. I'm not going to leave if I'm not replaced, but I seriously think that we definitely need to get fresh ideas and blood into the leadership, because that's what's going to keep this organization alive. So for all of you that it maybe has crossed your mind once, let it cross your mind again, think about it, ponder it over for the next week, and then next week what we're going to do is get together and have a more serious conversation about this. I think the committees after this, yes?
I'm just curious, do you have like bylaws that we can like read over the week?
So we do. We have bylaws from OWASP for an OWASP chapter. I need to rewrite them because it's a lot of work that needs to be done. I need to rewrite our constitution and bylaws and everything. So we're only a year old, and we've only been approved like a month ago. So a lot of this new leadership coming in is going to be working with the old leadership and figuring out the direction that this organization should go in and what our laws of the land should be. So it's really kind of taking on the position of like a pioneer here, because we're so new. I hope that helps somewhat. We do on Campus Link. If you're on Campus Link, you can look it over our bylaws that we have right now, but probably need to touch them up. Any other questions?
One more thing to point out, don't be afraid to come up and talk to us, even if you don't necessarily want to run for a position. As people move up into committee head positions, they are going to need other people to fill in the general members of those committees. So please, if you have any interest in participating anymore in the chapter, go talk to a committee head.
Many hands make for light work, and putting on this stuff every week is not easy when we don't have a lot of hands working together. If we lose a couple execs, it's going to be really hard to keep the quality and everything up of our meetings. So if you just want to like help us out more and inside our committees and with our content and with what we cover, just please come up and you're more than welcome to help out. So I think after this, some of the committees are going to be kind of gathering together, and those of you that are interested in talking to any of these committee heads or myself or learn anything about the committees, you should definitely just stay around and we'll kind of get things moving. Yes, Tom?
And we also have outreach this Friday. So if you are still interested in helping out, stay after the meeting. We can also talk about that. I'll quickly post the event registration for that if you guys are still interested.
I totally forgot to announce that. Yeah, we have outreach this Friday. We need all the hands we can get, all the help we can get. If you're interested in coming out, talking to some high schoolers, spreading some cybersecurity knowledge, let us know. Let Alex know. Cool. Anything else anybody else say? All right. So with that, if you want to leave, you can leave. If you want to stay, you can stay. I think we have our committee heads here, so let's. If you're interested. I need to talk to.
I'm gonna kill a live stream. Bye, YouTube.
Is Robbie there? Yeah. Nice to meet you. Sorry about that.
So, Miles was telling me that you guys like the logo, but you had other things you wanted or different directions you want to head, and so that's why I'm here. So I can figure out the direction you guys want to head, so I can work on that.